Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Father Talks podcast. I'm your host, Mike D. I am here with Miss Caasi O'Day, a licensed clinical social worker with nearly 20 years of experience helping people navigate mental health challenges, trauma, and emotional struggles. Cassie, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Michael. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, good. So, like we were just talking offline and that. Um, Your profile was amazing because it was probably one of the most honest and straightforward, you know, profiles I've seen in a while because there wasn't any fluff. It wasn't anything in there to make people get all these like, I don't know, fluffy feelings and everything. It was just straight up honest about, hey, I have been through some shit. And because I have been through some shit, I believe that, you know what, I am better suited to be honest with people about the things that they're going through. So I'm extremely excited to have you here so we can so we can just be honest, plain and
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, I think honesty is something that's not valued enough, especially in my field. And so being able to be authentic with people, I think is really important. And some people are good at small talk and some people are not. I'm not great, but I'd rather just get to it and to
Sure.
rip well with some populations and not switch it up. So,
Well, I can tell you as somebody, as a vet and, going through some mental health, therapy, it is always extremely hard to talk to a lot of the therapists because you can't open up to a person you can't relate to. Or, when you say something that might be off-putting, you know, you can kind of see the knee-jerk reaction for some people like, "Oh, really?" And again, as a vet, we say some pretty horrible things to each other, about each other, the things that we've been through, you know, but we deal with it with humor, you know, and most people, especially, again, this may not be the case for everybody, but through my experience, most of the people that I've dealt with are just, they're usually traumatized by the things that I say jokingly, you know, before we can actually ever get to talking about my, talking about how to help me. So there's that, and I'm sure that the people that you deal with, they appreciate your authentic nature. So
well, and what I would say with that, Michael, again, is some do and some don't. When you're coming into a therapist's office and someone says some crazy stuff and I laugh, which is
yeah,
what I often do at you, and then I'm like, "Okay, we don't have that relationship yet," but it's like, I'm not it's not I'm not laughing at you, but it's, geez, shit, like, you really said that out loud, right? How many times have you been able to share that with someone and, like, just sit with it, not have someone wanna make it better for you or tell you it's gonna be okay, but just like, I need to say something, and sometimes it's like, "Dang, wow," and to be able to have the reaction is important.
right. But that I can tell you right now, had you have laughed at some of the traumatizing, horrible things that I've said, you would probably still be the therapist that I'd be working with because honestly, it's real life. It's real life, and sometimes for some people, maybe it's not appropriate for them to deal with things with humor. I get that. That's not everybody. But for me, it's how I get things out, or it's how I deal with certain situations. Yes, there's a seriousness to things, but at the same time, I can't be serious all the time.
Well, and what I would say with that too is I've had to apologize many times when I realized that the laughter did not land, right? But like you said, with the ambulance humor or however they phrase it, some of us deal with our trauma on a day-to-day basis with humor, right? And so then when we walk into the therapy room, now we're not supposed to use humor anymore. Of course, we're going to use humor. That's what we do. And then we're going to start to weave in how do we talk more authentically and gently about our feelings, right? Men don't want to do that. It icks them out. It gives them a like feeling in their body that they want to push away. And so when I come at them with that, they're like, I can't talk to her. Like, what is she talking about? Right. But if I'm cussing, if we're talking, if it's like talk, like at the station or at base, it's it feels more authentic, and truly it's about creating a space of safety for people so that they'll say what they need to say. And if they shock me, then sometimes the biggest concern is, can you handle what I'm going to say? Are you going to be okay?
Right, right.
I'm gonna be fine. You know, like, I hear some wicked shit, but I have a pretty good self-care practice. I'm gonna be okay, right? And that's what most vets or a lot of men, they don't understand, especially talking to a woman. Ha Some of them feel really comfortable talking to they won't talk to their wives, right? And so it's about bridging that between why is it okay to talk to me like this, and why is it not okay to talk to your wife like that? And how do we get there? And what does both of you need so that you can do that? Um, because it does it makes me curious why, number 1, people keep coming back to me when I laugh at them, and, it's good to it's good to know that,
Love
you
it
know,
though. I love it.
like, my office mates don't wanna sit next to me or share walls because I'm so loud and I'm constantly just laughing, and then the next minute I'm holding space and we're, like, in this really beautiful moment together, but first you needed a laugh so that you could breathe, and now we can get closer to that feeling that's really hard to deal with, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like a little bit of laughter kind of brings down walls, you know, that this is a safe place for me to express myself. So when you come into a therapist's office, you're thinking, "Ah, shit, I'm gonna be on this couch. We're gonna be talking about a bunch of dumb shit that, you know what, I really don't want to talk about. This person doesn't know me, you know, here, I mean, obviously it's their job, but yeah, do I really want to do this? No, not really, but I have to, but and again, already, you're like, I wish my therapist at the VA had a sense of humor. Okay. That would be great,
Well,
because
I do offer trainings to providers, so maybe I could, and then I have one on veterans. I can we can arrange.
they need it so bad, so
Yeah,
bad. And
yeah.
I don't think I've talked to a vet yet who said, that they had a therapist that was just so great, they just couldn't get enough of them. You know, like, really? These are the people you want to fix us? So, but thinking about, so I was looking over your history in that, and I wanted to ask, because with your own upbringing, how did, your upbringing shape you as a therapist?
Well, it's one of those stories when I tell people they kind of laugh because it's hard to envision me now as this person, right? But I grew up in a small town, got into a lot of trouble, had a big mouth, didn't know when to shut up, hung out with a lot of dudes. So I acted very assertively, very aggressively, got into a lot of problems. And the long and short is I wasn't really getting maybe what I needed. I had young parents, they tried their best, but I have big needs, and I didn't know how to receive love, and so I pushed everything away, like, when Tupac got shot, I was 15 years old, and I was gonna have his baby at one point, and so I was devastated because I it was me against the world, man. Like, I hated everybody. I was doing things, I was selling things, I was hurting people, I was doing all kinds of stuff because I had so much inside that I didn't know how to express. People didn't know how to receive it, right? I say things and people are caught off guard by it. And so it was just like, you know, I was so mad, but after many years of my own therapy, it wasn't mad. It was her. It was different things, right? And that's what a lot of it is with many people is just that inability to express. So we get into a lot of problems and we have a lot of difficulty. And if we're courageous enough, we'll go to therapy and we'll really face our shit and we'll figure it out. But it's not easy to do, and we don't always have the resources. And being in a small town, I didn't have them. And so they were going to send me to a group home, and then I was super stoked about that because there was gonna be, like, cuter boys in a bigger city, so I was gonna get some trouble. And so then they just shipped me across country to live with my godparents and kinda sent me away. Therapy didn't work. It just didn't work.
Crazy. First off, the Tupac, that's hilarious. That is hysterical. Like,
I loved him
what?
so much.
I did too, but I did not wanna have his baby. I love his music, but I definitely did not wanna have his baby, not quite. I didn't love him quite that much. I love his music today, but, kids don't appreciate his music today, though,
No.
not the way they should. So,
Mm-mm.
but alright, moving on. So, what made you decide to become the kind of therapist other people never had?
I think it's just who I am. I don't like from the time I was in kindergarten, I just got in trouble. I have a loud mouth, I have ADHD, right? I just cannot be tamed and unless I choose to do it. And I like stimulation. I like excitement. I like really interesting stories. Like part of the reason I joke that I became a therapist is so I can learn about everybody else's shit and get paid to do it. Like it's
Right,
amazing. Like who doesn't want, and I live in Vegas. I hear some really wild stuff,
right.
And so I just I'm drawn to challenge, right? And so it's just I like working with populations that other people don't want to work with. And another honest thing, but a joke, it's a great job security. When you work with a population that nobody wants to work with, right? Like, I'll take your drug dealers, I'll take your sex workers, I'll take all the people that self-harm and want to kill themselves. Like, but I also really like get them because I get that mentality of feeling like you're you have nothing, you're dying, you're scared, you're in and I find that I can be myself with that population because they're crazy and I'm crazy and it's just they feel comfortable with a person in the room versus, a
Yeah,
robot.
with the robot. And I
Yeah,
mean, it's fair to say. And like another thing that pointed out to me is that that jumped out to me about you was that you don't take the typical therapist path of being, overly nice, overly like I'm looking for. You're not you're not running it doesn't sound like you're patting people on the butt, you know what, just to make them come back a second time, or to keep their business, you know, being open. I feel like a lot of therapists, they tell people what they baby them and they tell people what they want to hear versus what they need to hear sometimes, and
absolutely. Yeah.
again, I've had my own struggles emotionally, I drank a lot for a while, and those were all things I ended up I got taken care of. But I think I would have gotten them done faster had somebody had said, "Hey, listen, man, you're kind of fucking up. You need to stop drinking so much." You know, it wouldn't have it would have been faster reality for me to for somebody to say, "Hey, stop bullshitting, guy. You need to fix this right now," and I would have been okay with that. I would have been absolutely 1,000% okay with somebody essentially telling me to fuck off.
Well, and I think this is the tricky thing, Michael, is that they tell us, right? The client has the right to self determination. We are not to tell a client what to do in the therapy room. And so the thing that I still don't tell you, but I make it clear and I put it right in front of your face. I'm not telling you what to do, but look at it. Right?
Right.
Look at it, and people don't want to do that, right? In the therapy room, they tiptoe, and they want you to leave the room feeling good about yourself. If I did that, I'm not doing my job all the time, right? My kids are always happy with me. I'm not being a good mom because I'm never instilling consequences and teaching them how to be men, right? Like,
There you
so
go.
yeah, so I think that's the thing is, I never tell people what to do. People ask me, "Should I break up with them? What should I do? Should I do that?" I'm not telling you, but this dude has done this, 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 this. Here's your facts.
And, you have to decide
Now
based on
you
the
have
info.
to decide. And I think that's the thing is, when I worked with insurance companies and I worked for an agency and I was seeing 300 people on a caseload. I honestly didn't care if people came back or not. Yeah, I just couldn't.
Right.
That's the way that I had to take care of myself. I just had to do the best that I could, right? And just but now in private practice, it is my dime if they don't come back. But also one of the things that I can't handle doing is first of all, if your baby's ugly, I ain't telling you it's cute. I just won't. I'll say it's got a cute hat, right? "Oh, look at those toes." Like, "Your baby is
Yeah.
cute." Like, lots of times when your baby ain't cute, and when someone's telling you that baby's cute, you don't believe them. So I'm not gonna be the therapist that validates the invalid. I will not do it. Secondly, like, I call them uh-huh therapists. That's what I had. Uh-huh,
Yes,
uh-huh,
that's what I have.
uh-huh. And like, are you making your grocery list over there? Like, come on, like, give me something. And I can't do that either because I want everyone to leave a session with at least something. I'll know I gave it to you, whether you received it or not. No.
Right.
But I really worked hard to give it to you. And I think that's the thing is that saying hard things to people is never easy. And it's necessary. And I kind of like doing it. It's really fun. Now, in my own life, it can be much harder, right? Because there's a lot more on the line. I'm a real person that has to do that with my friends and family, and that's difficult. But at work, it's like,
Right.
yeah.
But I think as humans, at least as grown adults, we need to hear hard truths. Yeah, we need to hear the hard truth about things sometimes because skirting around the truth isn't getting us from point A to point B. You know, people have been skirting around the truth or walking on eggshells around you, for forever and a day, and that's done nothing. I've got family members, excuse me, who have struggled with alcoholism and that, and everybody just constantly babying them, and instead of just being honest, to tell them, look, you're fucking up. Okay, you can make all the excuses you want to, you know, the drinking has to stop. Okay, and while that did not produce the results I wanted, but it had to be said, and now me and a particular family member, we're on speaking terms right now, but eventually I know that message will eventually get through. I hope. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Yeah. So moving on. What are the most common emotional patterns you see in people who have been surviving for years without realizing it?
Oh, the most common. Okay. And men or just across the
Oh,
population?
in men.
In men. I think I'm gonna get a piece of paper and write this down. I think
Mhm.
number one, working. People get very busy, right, with working. But when I look at working, it's really like, what are we trying to avoid? What are we trying to distract ourselves with? What are
Okay.
we trying to engage in? And so I think that for sure avoidance of any kind truly is going to be one of those. So men in general will typically avoid rather than approach their feelings unless they have been taught skills, right? Unless they have been taught from a parental figure and hopefully a man in their life of how to do that. So I would say avoidance. Substance use is a huge one, but a lot of it's going to go back to avoidance. So when I look at different behaviors in men, different patterns, whether it be I stonewall you, I leave, I shut down, I cheat, I eat, I stare at the TV, I do these things, I argue, right? Like, okay, they can argue, but a lot of men don't argue. Typically, women are the ones that are more argumentative in relationships than men. Men will shut down quicker, right? And so that's the thing is like the behavioral pattern I see the most goes to avoidance in men. But when you dig deeper, it's not necessarily because they don't want to talk about their feelings. They don't know how, right?
Right.
They really don't know how to do it. And so we don't, as women, come to men with like, you're having a rough time, expressing yourself right now. Would you like me to give you a little space to think about that, and we'll come back later. I'll take care of the kids while you do that. No, they don't. We're like, "Tell me what's up, like, what's going on?" And we're in your face. And so men, women, we go into fight, flight, freeze, flock, fawn. We go into different stress responses based on our past, but men go a lot to avoidance because, again, if the police get called, who's gonna go to jail? Lots of times, man's gonna go to jail, right? So men have learned over time it's not always safe to act out. It's safer to go in when they were younger. And if they had fathers that parented or treated them a certain way, not acting out, you go within. And so it's a lot of shut up and shut down is what I see with men.
And I will tell you that I was definitely I've always been a person. I try to when I've in previous relationships, I try to avoid conflicts and whatnot because I don't want to allow anybody to bring a violent side of me out that I've tried so hard to put in a box and keep that way because I've got too much to lose. And I've been in relationships where my significant other was just constantly pushing my buttons, knowing the type of person I'm trying not to be. So that that makes a lot of sense to me that, hearing that men turn inwardly because we just we don't want to deal with the bullshit.
No, you don't wanna deal with it, and I think that's the thing is, like, recognizing that it's we have all these big feelings, and how else would you express them, like, in a way that, as a child, that's one thing, and then as a man with your wife, what I hear a lot, Michael, is like, how am I supposed to, like, cry and tell him how I feel and then be like the man and then go out and, like, take care of the house and take care of her, and, like, do the things when I was just crying in her lap, like, 2 hours ago.
Right.
I didn't do that, you know? And so we just
Yeah, but and that's the thing is that now couple of my past guests, this is a conversation we had and guys that I talked to, like there's no safe space to do those kinds of things, or there's no safe way where you feel I can I can shed a tear in front of my significant other and still be the guy who goes down and cuts down a tree in the backyard, you know, or I'm the guy who goes out and works on your car and you still see me the same way. And I can tell you that is a massive fear of 80% of us.
And if that's the case, like, I almost wanna interview you now is, like, then what did the women of the world do, Michael? What do we do? Like, as mothers, right? Like, as mothers of 2 young kids, I'm trying to raise my boys in a way where, God, they're like, "Can you stop talking about feelings, mom?" But I'm also the next person that's out there throwing the football, hanging up things, doing like,
But you
what do
but
we do?
you giving them a safe space to cry or be emotional is one of the things that most of us didn't get. So growing up, I was always taught boys don't cry, boys don't hit girls, boys, it's like if somebody needs something moved or something, boys do that. Girls don't do these things. And that right there has shaped my entire life because I'm 52 and I can tell you right now, I have not cried in probably 15, 20 years. And I know I'm I don't know. I'm learning now how damaging that can be to me, because I'm holding in all this emotion, all this stress. I know, what high levels of cortisol can do to you and whatnot. You know, I but I also realize that I'm a work in progress. You know, I know that this shit didn't happen overnight. Not gonna fix it overnight. You know. So what do I do? What I'm doing right now. Slowly talking to people. And I think that's the other thing is that talking to people, realizing that a lot of people have the same situation as me, or talking with people and realizing that they've been through similar situations has made me much more comfortable expressing a lot of things that I've never expressed or shared with people before. So like, I'm like, I like to write. I used to, when I was younger, I used to write poetry and stuff all the time, music, all that stuff. But I kind of boxed that all up because it was like, that's, that, that's,
Say it.
you're a sissy. Yeah, you're a sissy. Don't be a fucking girl, you know? But that was the environment I grew up in, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't lose a fight. If you lost a fight, you go back the next day and you fight again until you win. Shit's not over till you on top. So those are the things that I would like to see less of, you know, less than like with my sons even. I have always expressed to them, if you need to cry, do what you need to. You do not have to be me. Okay. I admire you because you can. So I would like to see more of that.
Well, and I think with what you said, doing what you're doing is so important because, I think that the younger generation need to do a better job of talking about their feelings because they have people in their 40s, right? 50s, like that are realizing we never had a chance. And so we're parenting our children in a very different way. And we're getting a lot of shit for it because we're not making them men and we're, babying them. And it's like, no, believe me, right? They just have that space to be a human being, which we didn't have. And so I think you doing this, especially, you know, like I was sharing before we started, is working with the fire department in Las Vegas. One of the things that I found difficult was the system, the old school system. And as the kids are getting younger and as the chiefs, it's like they're seeing the need, but we still have this bureaucratic system that we can't get past. So having men in their 50s saying like, we need to talk about our fucking feelings. Thank
Yeah.
God. I wish more men would talk about that, and the men that I have sitting in my room are powerful, smart, influential people that I just wish would share that message because we need people that are prominent, that are older, that are mature, that have been through this to say, "This doesn't work for us." And so I think and that's why I wanted to come on here because that is what we need. We need more men to be courageous and to step out and at the same time to let us know as women, as mothers, as wives, like, what do you guys need? How do we, like, support you guys in that process? Because I'll be honest, when I hear you haven't cried in 15 to 20 years, I first of all felt in my body where I felt like someone just like stabbed me and I couldn't breathe. I was like, holy cow, if that's what he's holding, no thank you. And I had to breathe out and let it go because it was heavy. And I don't want to carry that for 15 years, Michael.
Yeah.
And the second
And
thing that
it's
is
rough.
give me a year with him and he'll be crying.
No, here's the thing is that it's so funny because my girls, they joke all the time. It's like, watch, when I finally have kids or when I get married, dad's gonna be crying like a little baby. I'm thinking to myself, listen, um, don't be don't be shocked if I'm not because like we lost my in-laws a few years ago and I was pretty close to my in-laws and whatnot. Couldn't shed a tear, and it's crazy because like I miss these people extremely, extremely just so much. But the thing is that I was especially in the moment, I was so busy focused on other people and taking care of, them emotionally that I didn't make time for me, to grieve or to mourn or whatnot. So now it comes up, I have little spurts where, I'll get overwhelmed with just being sad and whatnot, because they're not here. At the same time, I'm like, well, fuck that. You know, I've got a job to do.
Well, but then see how I just want to turn this into a therapy session because that's what I do. That's your That's your avoidance, right?
Yeah.
Like, you intellectualizing it first, then you saying, "Oh, I got people to take care of," that's you avoiding it, and then "Oh, fuck it," but that's where I really like working with people and bringing you back to that, I mean, like, hold on, hold on. No, 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 you don't get right? That's not what we're here for right now." But then and sitting with that feeling of going back and getting into your body and feeling that loss, feeling, but who the hell wants to do that? Like, why would I jump in there and go on that ride? Like, no, thank you. If I know how to not feel that and I've been fine for a while, why would I want to do that?
Yeah. And
And I
that's
think that's the hard sell. Why do people want to do
it.
that? Right?
And the thing is too, is that I've always been a fixer, you know. So when people in my family are upset, when my kids are going through something, whatnot, it is my job to make sure we get that fixed, we get it taken care of. So where my kids will come to me for everything, with relationship advice, financial advice, life advice, you know, they know that I'm the person who will help them work through it. What they will not come to me for is when they need somebody to baby them because I don't have it in me. And it's not that I genuinely don't want to or that I don't care in that way. It's just for me, I would rather fix what is bothering them than sit around for 2 hours crying about it. You know, let's figure out how we can make this work for you. Let me figure out how, I can make things better for you. You know, that's more important to me. And I know some people probably need, just a hug or, just a moment, So those are things that my kids are older now. So um I'm still trying to do better with those things. And I know that a lot of men are in the same situation, where they don't cry with their kids, they're busy fixing everything, you know, instead of spending that emotional time with them. You know, I'm there, like, I don't think I've missed an event my kids have ever had, except, I mean, obviously when I was in basic training, then when I was deployed. But outside of that, my kids, everything my kids do, I try to be there for. So I want to see some more, I want to see some more men be able to get in touch with our feelings, be able to be there emotionally, you know, and when it's time to be stern, when it's time to, I don't want to always just be the disciplinarian in people's lives or just the fixer. I want my kids to be able to say, hey, I'm having a moment. I need some help. And me not instantly jump in with the screwdriver or hammer and be like, hey, how can we fix this shit? Now, I want to be a little more in touch with, the emotional side too.
Which means you have to sit with the discomfort as well,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and
And
that's
just
hard.
the thought of it makes me fucking sweat.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's
Right? Oh my
I
God.
mean, not good that it's happening, but good that you recognize it, right? Because even that's the first step that people, you know yeah, yeah.
So, um, what are some of the most damaging beliefs men carry in adulthood?
Oh, let me think about that. I think we've already touched on one of the big ones is that there's not a lot of space for men to show up, with weakness, with vulnerability, that they have a role, right? And gender roles, we could talk about that for a long time about how that impacts people and how they feel and how that creates beliefs about how people should be. But I think society, I think there's so many, honestly. The damaging beliefs, I think the biggest one is I'm not man enough. I'm not good enough. I can't do enough. Like, and so I think that's a universal thing to a point, but it's curious because with men, like, it is damaging because of the belief that's instilled in them from a very young age. Do, produce, protect, create, like, and when is there that space for just a little boy to be, right? Like, just be. Can he just be? And then when he notices something, can he go and can he talk about it? Can he go and get a hug about it? Can he seek support and care for it? And I think that you touched on it at the beginning of this episode is men just don't feel like they can, they don't know how. It's not something that's usually welcomed. It's something that's made fun of lots of times amongst peer groups, which is really unfortunate because if you take those 5 men sitting in the room and said to them like, "Hey man, you got some shit you'd like to talk about," and have someone like shut up and actually listen, would you like that? A lot of them would be like, "Yeah," but no one wants to say that. You know? And it's sad. That's so sad.
Yeah. Well, like, I interviewed another guy a couple weeks ago, and he voiced something similar. So he was the captain of his football team, in college and that, and he basically he got some sort of award and everything, and he was thanking the team, for it, and he started crying, and afterwards, he apologized to people, for acting like a baby. But all of the dudes that he talked to said, "Man, no, it was great. We really all felt some kind of way about it." And it made me really realize that most of us, we just need somebody else to be able to do it to make it okay for us. Like many of us want to do it, and we don't necessarily judge the next guy for doing it. Most of the time, honestly, we're probably jealous of that guy that he can express himself that way, and we want to be able to do that too, but we don't. We're so fearful of being judged, you know, or being less of because we had a softer emotion or we show a softer side on occasion, you know. So what do we do?
Well,
Because
and
all
I'm
of us
glad.
want to. I can
Yeah.
I can guarantee mo- all of us want to. We just don't know how to.
Well, and I think it poses a bigger issue, Michael, in that, you mentioned it at the end. People are gonna judge us. Well, are you
Yes.
judging yourself? Because that's where when we look at being mindful, which is, different than meditation, but mindful is being aware in the moment without judgment. So how
Mm.
often are you walking around throughout your life not judging yourself? And as a therapist that teaches this, I could say, "Oh, I don't judge people." I don't judge people as much as I've realized I judge myself still at times, right? I'm
Oh,
not
really?
doing enough, I'm not working hard enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough. But if I look at another mom or, a professional, and I'll be like, "Oh, they're trying their best." And I have a lot of compassion for people and I understand why and how they're doing things. But judgment is the big thing. And so if you could say out loud to yourself, I can cry my ass off right now and still be a man. And I'm going to allow myself to sit in this discomfort and work through this to get to that point where I allow myself to feel like I'm going to like throw up and crap my pants at the same time and sit with that. Like that is courage. Like that is like going to the battlefield, like
Not there. And I'm sitting here listening to this, and I'm telling you, I am stewing in my own sweat at the thought of sit. I could probably do this by myself outside in the rain, where I'd be like, "No, I'm not crying. It's just raining outside. It was my allergies and shit." But the thought of doing that in front of people, okay, I am sweating my ass off right now. Okay,
so then don't start with other people, start with
yeah,
yourself, right?
yeah,
And that's the thing is like, do we even give ourselves permission to feel that feeling when we're alone? And if you look back to what I said earlier about the avoidance, you're at home, you're chilling, you get a little something in your body that lets you know there might be a feeling going on in there. Oh shit, right? Like, let's go do something else.
yeah.
Well, what happens if you just stayed there? Like, truly just stayed there? Yeah, you'd feel like you're gonna do this. Yeah, you're gonna feel like that. But what if you stay there and you see what happens?
I feel like I would literally fucking explode. Like, if we sit here, listen, man, we got to get up. We got to get up. Go put your hand on the fucking stove or something. Just, we got to do something, you know? And,
Ain't nobody exploded from seeing what their feelings, Michael.
and
Not one
we,
reported case. Not one. But that's
we
the
don't
fear
know.
that we
It
have,
could be
right?
somebody,
Somebody, we don't know. But that's the
right?
fear we have is that we are
Right.
going to die. We are going to explode. And that takes me to like the type of therapy I do really enjoy doing, which is internal family systems, which helps you recognize that there's a part of you that believes that it needs to protect you through functioning in this way, right? And so
Right.
when I say sit with that feeling and you say I feel like I'm going to explode, it's because that part of you feels that fear and is like, "No, no, 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 no. We will not be able to protect the system if we allow this to happen." And so you fight it, right? And it's that just you won't. I mean, but that is like, you are the mountain and the comfort's outside of your, the growth's outside your comfort zone. It's all true. But I think that's the thing is like to help people again find the courage, find the space, find the time, find the support. You yourself have to give it to you, right? Like, of saying, okay, whatever thing that I want to do, I have to give myself the time and the space and the ability to play with that. And it's going to feel weird and it's going to be awkward. Um, but who knows where it may take me, and that can be done with a lot of different things that people do already, spirituality, different things that people do that with your feelings, right? Just see what happens when we explore a little bit more.
And again, like I said, and I realize that this isn't a normal occurrence. Well, for men it is, but I should be able to. be okay with expressing myself and not judging my I know that I'm judging myself more than anybody else is, you know, and that is probably one of the another step that I need to get over myself is that I need to be okay with being an emotional person sometimes. It's not again, I'm 52. It has never been my way. So I have to start accepting new realities. It's like an it's like an injury. If you get injured so bad you can't continue whatever it was you used to do, you have to now focus on the new you. And I kind of feel like that's the same thing for me is that, you know what, I've always been this way, but now I have to let some other things happen so I can be a different version of who I need to be. You know, I mean, does that make sense?
It makes sense, and what I would say is if you were in my room is do it by dosing yourself. Do it a little
Mhm.
bit at a time. Do it where it
Right.
makes sense. Do where it feels comfortable. Do it right until the point it feels like you're gonna explode or burst, and then back off, right? And then remind ourselves like we're okay, that was uncomfortable. I can deal with the discomfort. Did anything bad happen? If it did, is it still okay? And then maybe the next time we go farther and farther. But I do think that if we lived in a world where people didn't judge one another, I think it would be a lot easier to do this, but we don't. We're
Right.
constantly being judged. People are constantly putting one another down, whether it be in music or movies or online, whatever, right? And so if we had more compassion for others, then it would make it easier to show emotion. And the more men that can show emotion and do it in ways where like it teaches young men how to show emotion, it's it's cool, right? But that all takes time. And so while you're learning, I would just say moment by moment. And in therapy, when I touch on something that makes you want to throw up, that's where we should go. And then that's the same word for myself, right? Like if I'm like, oh, like, ew, like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I should probably lean into that because I need to
Right.
explore that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll definitely. I'm hoping people listening are paying attention to this because,
Yeah. Yeah.
gentlemen, we need this. We need this really bad.
Yeah. For
So,
sure.
moving on. What do you think traditional therapists get wrong when people are in real crisis?
Too many rules. I mean, honestly, I really don't like rules that much. And when people are in crisis, I think, and to all the therapists, clinicians out there, that may listen, it's not like I go around break rules all the time, but when people are in crisis, it's kind of like cover your own ass, right? And so people want to put them in hospitals. They want to, spend the session doing a safety plan, and they want to make sure, like everybody's stabilized so that we can close the file, send them on their way, they're good
Okay.
to go, right? I can
Okay.
feel warm and fuzzy about it. Well, that's not the way a crisis works. And part of like being in crisis is knowing how to navigate the crisis because the crisis might last a few days, a few weeks, it may ongoing for some of the clients that I work with. And so I really like to teach them a series of techniques to keep them it's harm reduction, right? Like, we work with the self-harming population. I'm not gonna tell them to stop self-harming. I'm gonna ask them to do it in a safer way that's gonna lead to less harmful results, knowing that they may not stop doing something. And, you can't stop drinking if you don't know how to cope without the alcohol, right? So we're gonna work on those things while we're moving in the direction of where we need to go. But I think that's the problem with traditional therapies. People are really focused on the rules. We're taught not to self-disclose, so nobody talks about themselves. They're all just little bots, right? We have confidentiality, and we have, we're not supposed to cuss, supposed to, act a certain way. N- Again, I can see through that with people. And if someone comes at me like that, I'm not going to really feel comfortable with you.
With
And
you?
so I think that we need to be more human. I think a lot more therapists need to be in therapy, and then they'd have more insight and they would have more understanding of how to work with people because I think sometimes they forget. I think that traditionally therapy focuses on talk and we need to get into the body, and that is not something we're really taught in school. It's something that you have to get advanced training in, and then you have to do it and live it and practice it yourself in order to be able to teach it, and it's
Right.
fucking uncomfortable. Like, I don't like being in my body all the time. I don't spend all the time in my body because it is like, geez, like, why does it have to feel this way?
And that is my thing is that I'm doing better. I am doing much better than I was even 2 years ago. You know, I've learned a lot. I try to look for signs, when I'm avoiding certain things. And I know some of this is, part to do with the military. And, like I said, I try to be cognizant when I'm avoiding certain things. When emotional stuff, I avoid like the fucking plague. Okay. I avoid it like the plague. If I can't be happy or mad, I don't want nothing to do with it. Yeah, it's got to be one of the two. All this, heartfelt, emotional, everything else in between, I avoid it. But I've gotten better, at accepting. Hey, you know what? Just coming up to somebody and just, accepting a hug, without like, what the fuck do you want? Because like I said, I deal with uncomfortable things with humor, and it makes most people uncomfortable, but I generally only care about whether or not I'm comfortable. So, um, definitely something I need to keep thinking about and keep working on.
And one of the things that I would also say to that is, like, the question that I'm always asking people, especially since I went to working with the body more, is what does it feel to be in your body? Or what happens in your body when that occurs? And so just helping people bring that awareness to what it feels like to be in their body, it lots of times will give people clarity and, "Oh, no wonder I'm doing this." And then when I understand why I'm doing this, then I might be more willing to not judge myself as much because I don't see that I'm stupid or horrible or terrible. I see that I'm having a hard time, and so I'm trying to cope with that. But we don't spend a lot of time in our body, and the more that we understand, just stick your toe in there and just hang out in your body for a second and see what happens. And then go back and go, "Okay, what do I need to be able to hang out there a little bit longer?" And a lot of people don't know, but it's just sometimes going in there and hanging out, slowing down, putting down the phone, right? Like, just chilling out and just feeling it. And, most don't know how to teach that. So I think that's what's really missing is that, because how are we supposed to navigate an internal system when we're not even in it? We're
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're not in it.
It's outstanding. So, couple more questions. So, what truth about healing do people not want to hear?
That it takes a lot of time. That, I've told a lot of my clients, like, "This is gonna be really hard, and this is gonna take a lot of time," and they're like, "I'm so glad you didn't tell me that in the beginning because I probably wouldn't not came back." But I think that's the truth, and I hear my garbage man, so I'm sorry about this, but,
So,
uh but that's the truth that, if you come to therapy, let's say, I mean, I'm 44. So when I really found a good therapist and started doing some deep dive work again, I was about 40. And I have 40 years of shit to dig through. Plus what I came in with from my mom and my dad. Good God, right? Like, I don't want none of that, but I'm still dealing with their stuff. And so it's gonna take time, and I think that's the thing is we want results and we wanna feel better, and people get frustrated when they don't feel better and they want it to be faster, and so it truly is, again, back to that judgment thing, accepting where you are now
right.
until you get where you want to be. Now that doesn't mean like, "Oh, I'm a serial killer, I'm cool until I stop killing." No, it's like recognize
Okay, Dexter, watch it now. This is not the place. This is not the place.
This is not the episode, that's for
Yeah,
next time. But
yeah,
it's
next
about
time. Gotcha.
recognizing, like, should I still sometimes lose my cool and yell at my kids? But I recognize now why, and I'm noticing the parts of my body that get activated. And then I am able to apologize to my children and remove myself faster. And so I think that's the thing is just really being able to give ourselves that time, space, and practice. And we have to be patient and we have to be gentle with ourselves. And that's hard.
Yeah, yeah. Like I can't even imagine this conversation 10 years ago. And this would not I wouldn't even have considered 98% of this conversation because there was just no way I would have allowed myself to even remotely be uncomfortable. Like even some of the things that I admitted in this conversation 10 years ago never would happen. Never. I've also learned that my frustration and anger was never really frustration and anger. It was usually concern and caring, but came out as frustration or anger, you know, or, I was worried about something and it came out as me being pissed off just because I simply didn't know how to, I never knew how to regulate my own emotions and I didn't know how to express myself in a way to make other people understand that I'm not pissed off at you. I am just concerned and this is how it's coming out. So, and I think a lot of men are in that same situation because we just have never been taught how to deal with emotions and how to express ourselves in a way that doesn't command or doesn't, we don't make other people fearful of us because we're just simply trying to express a concern or a fear and it comes out as anger. So now you think I'm mad at you, but really in actuality, I was never mad. I was just always worried. So, um, all right. So, final question. Okay,
Yes.
I know you got a big day today. So, for the men listening, for the men listening right now who feel stuck and emotionally tired, where does healing actually begin?
I would say with courage, I think one of the things that women and men are taught is courage looks like this, right? Doing the scary thing, taking the big leap, doing all of that. And so Brene Brown, one of the things that she asks is like, what makes you feel vulnerable? And so I like to ask people that question. What makes you feel vulnerable? Um, And it's different for everyone. I'm 5'10". Wearing high heels makes me feel vulnerable. I don't like it. I'm too
Okay.
tall. You can't run or fight in high heels, or I don't know how, right? And I don't need to anymore, but my little self still thinks I need to protect myself. So I never learned how to walk in high heels. And I think that's the thing, it's courage. The courage to look different, to feel different, to try different things, to step outside and be seen in a different way. And that is absolutely terrifying. It is terrifying. And one thing that I would say to every single human being is whether you believe this or not, everyone is doing this in their own way with something different. And you may never even know that they're doing it. Right? And so to say, like, it really starts with courage of saying, like, I'm gonna do something that makes me sick, like sick, and I'm gonna do it. And I'm gonna face it and I'm gonna sit through that discomfort. And that is courage, right? That to me is more courageous than doing something so that you don't look stupid, you know? And so to kind of ask themselves, where can they be courageous? Who can they be courageous with? What do they notice in their body when it feels okay to be courageous or when it doesn't feel okay to be courageous? And those are the questions I would ask someone. And if it's like nowhere, then how and where can we go to try to find someone that can help provide us that space or give us those tools to be courageous because it is very difficult. And unfortunately in this world it's not set up for men to do it easily and they need a lot of support.
Standing.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Caasi O'Day. Cassie,
Yes.
you're my favorite therapist.
Well, thank you, Michael.
Listen, hey, listen, I understand that everybody needs something a little different. I can tell you right now, though, I don't think that I know a single man who would not love you as a therapist just because of the openness, the honestness, and just how direct you are. I can tell you with especially with the group of guys, at least that I know, they would appreciate they deal with a lot of things the same way, and they would appreciate the humor. They would appreciate a place where, where somebody occasionally swears at them, where they don't feel like they're walking on eggshells, you know, with again, and I think it's easier to connect with somebody who's like that because the majority of us are. So, with
I
that
believe
being said, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It
things.
was awesome. Again, I don't ask everybody to come back, but I definitely would love to have you on the show again. You know, maybe I can bring some of my nutcase friends on the show and we
Well,
can
that
have
would
us
be we could do a group therapy session.
right, right. Mo- Listen, I would just for me, it would be more to see them uncomfortable.
I would love that. I would
So
absolutely love that, and it's for all the men that live in Nevada, Colorado, or Utah, that's where I'm licensed, so if someone would like to work with me, they may be able to find my information and be happy to work with
actually,
those
I've got a
states.
couple friends in Vegas.
Okay,
So well, in
please
Lafayette,
send them my
California.
way, Michael, and then when you come and visit, you come and say hi to me, okay?
I will. I will indeed. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, have a good day. Bye.
Hey, you too. Bye bye.